Making a video, a draft physics video. Mostly dealing with just one comment, and we'll see where it goes from there. The last video I made on the electron did contain a lot of criticisms of some other stuff presented, but it's really a good explanation of a lot of physics. The motor principle, the right-hand rule, and explaining how magnetic fields don't really move in directions. They just don't. They align. You know, dipoles. Magnets. Anyway, so yeah, really good video. Electron. Search for it. It's in the subject videos. Anyway. But there was one point where I mentioned the presenter had said something about the current, for the coils, and how the current is what you use to create the proportional relationship, the sort of equal sign, to the strength of the magnetic field. And I kind of objected and started pointing out about wattage, but it really wasn't a valid objection in this sense. And in the important sense of understanding what the difference between voltage and current is. The huge advantage of voltage, increasing voltage, is that you don't affect as many atoms with the transfer of pressure. So by increasing the amount of pressure between the electrons, you can move more force through fewer interactions between atoms. So fewer electrons have to do this, push, 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 push. Because you're pushing more force with each push. So each movement is quicker, more force in it. So each movement is conveying more energy. And as you lower the voltage, then you need more atoms to be involved in the pushing, more electrons transferring the pushes, the weaker pushes. You need a lot more weaker pushes. Now the key is when you're attempting to make the wire magnetic, you want to affect as many atoms as possible. The whole point is to create a bunch of dipoles, to force the electrons to move out of position, causing a change in the visibility of the proton. So again, I've made this argument many times, but this is sort of what you're doing. Okay, you're trying to block the red force with the black force, in a sense. And the further out this goes, the more you block it. The electron blocks the red, right? And the closer in it is, the less it can block the red, less capable of blocking all the red. So, and likewise, this and this would be obvious differences, alignment differences. So that's essentially polarization. That's two ways you can polarize an atom. And that polarization is what the field is going to push. It's going to push the electron and the proton into different positions because they're essentially polarizable because of this ability to change their alignment. So the idea would be, if you want to make the wire magnetic, even if it is copper, you're going to turn it into a magnet, and you're going to do it because you're going to take atoms that don't really have a polarity, and you're going to make them polarized. You're going to make them polarized from a perspective, from a point of view. From one point of view, they're not going to be polarized. From one point of view, they're going to be polarized. And that means that they can be affected by a field, and they will create a field, magnetism. They'll excrete it, a bias. And so yes, so you want to do a lot of current because you want to change, polarize as many atoms as possible, because the more atoms you have polarized, the more magnetism you will create. So if you want to create more, get more magnetic effect out of a coil of wire, You want to have high current and low voltage. Or high voltage and high current. I don't know if there's any real advantage to high voltage, but there probably are some circumstances where yeah, I just don't think so. But anyway, the only circumstance that'd be helpful is when you're trying to create a frequency. You need higher voltages, but you need greater speed to maintain a frequency. Okay, yeah, so that's enough. I just wanted to make that clarification. All right, Gary, thank you for existing and breaking my conditioning. This is better than any psychologist or parent could ever offer. I don't know if I exactly do that on this channel, but fine. You don't believe in ether yet. You describe the universe as being filled with force bits. Something. With something. So, and he calls them and he's saying, because I call them force bits, things moving the speed of light, force comes, yes, the universe has two things in it. I'm sorry. Yes, it has to start with something. And what I'm saying is the most elemental I think we're ever going to get is the existence of the little bits going the speed of light that seem inexhaustible. That is, they are the reason why there's a conservation law, is recognition that you can't kill their energy. You can't kill their speed. It's always in the field somewhere. It always exists. It's perpetual motion. That's what the little things going the speed of light have. That's why they can travel so far across the universe. It's because they don't die. They don't just evaporate. They just don't fall apart. They don't do any of that crap. Now, you have some fact that's in conflict with that notion? Do you have some experiment or something that indicates that some other fact is true? I'm saying that every piece of evidence we have indicates there's two things. The force stuff moving the speed of light, gravity, magnetism, photons that you see and the rest of the electromagnetic spectrum, and the matter bits, the electron, the proton, the charged elements. And what is affecting how the charged elements interact are those force bits. Now, what's so complicated? Now, if you can show me somebody who uses the word ether to describe dominoes moving the speed of light, then fine, I'll call my theory an ether theory, okay? But show me, at least 10% of ethers to say their ether is moving the speed of light and has real momentum. Because that's what forces have. They have real momentum. They don't weigh nothing, obviously. They can't weigh nothing and affect something else. They have to have some material substance. But it's clearly the one. It's clearly the smallest bit of that. It's the quanta of quantum mechanics. Is the little force fucker. I mean, so again, just so you don't believe in ether. Yes, I don't believe there in any notion that there's some stagnant grid work that vibrates. Yeah, I don't think that's what the cause is. I think the universe is simpler than that. Shit. Yet you describe the universe as being filled with something. Yes, force and matter bits. That's what it appears to be full of. That's what all the evidence, in my opinion, points to. You got one shred of evidence that points to something else existing? I don't think you have. Electrons are not monopoles, says you. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay, you say they're not. I'm saying every piece of evidence indicates they are. That's the only rational way to describe them. They are clearly segregated plus charge and minus charge. Now, if that isn't plus and minus monopoles, if those aren't the monopoles of magnetism, then what the fuck is? That's clearly how they function. Anyway, they are charge carriers. Well, what do you think the nature of what they carry is? It has to be something. They don't just carry this label that says, I'm negative. They have to be excreting something that demonstrates their negativity. They have to be doing something, and they're doing just what a magnet is. A magnet takes force that comes in mixed, red and black mixed, okay, and it comes out segregated. All the red stuff comes out one way, all the black stuff comes out at the other way. All the electron force comes out one side, all the proton force comes out the other side. Repulsive. Proton repulsive, electron repulsive. That's what everything indicates. That's why that's how we distinguish a magnet, is that, well, yeah, this side repels protons, this side repels electrons. That's exactly what it's doing. Exactly what it's doing. And that's exactly what electrons are doing. They're repelling each other. Charge carriers, and the charge depends on angular momentum. Absolute nonsense. Can be positive or negative with the flavor towards negative. Well, it says you. I see no evidence that they can be. In any normal experimental circumstance, electrons are not positive or negative. Absolute bullshit. Electron to electron repulsion is hyperbolic motion. What does that mean? What does that mean, hyperbolic motion? What? You think they're tornadoes spinning into each other or something? What the fuck does that crap mean? And what experiment do you have that demonstrates it? Well, show me the experiment. I keep saying, let's argue experiments. Let's argue some facts instead of your delusions and your fantasies. Let's argue actual facts. Do you have any set of facts that demonstrates any of this crap? This hyperbolardy bullshit. Do you have one single fucking experiment that demonstrates there any such thing? That electrons have any such property? And electric by nature. What do you don't even know what electric is. Okay, electric happens inside materials. Conductors. You have to have a conducting medium. And it can be an atmosphere full of loosely connected atoms, okay, for sparks. Quite obviously not a very good conductor. That's why it's sparking. That's why it's creating all of that heat and light. It's because it's a crappy conductor. But most conductors can be, they have to be a conductor. And the electricity is just a movement of the pressure. It's just the repulsive electrons pushing into each other and moving the pressure. The electrons aren't really going anywhere. They're just pushing each other. Pushing. You don't even know what electricity is. A neutron is more than just a proton and electron. Prove it. Prove it. Demonstrate it. Indicate it with a fact somewhere. You are getting close. Fuck you. Think proton, neutron, and electron geometry within the magnetic material. That doesn't even make any sense. Obviously, I already know that's how atoms are held together. The monopoles of charge are attracted to each other, and they're repelled by the electrons are repelled by the electrons, the protons are repelled by the protons, and vice versa for the attraction part. And that's what holds it all together. That's the tensions that hold it together. I've already pointed this out. That's why atoms are made in high pressure suns. You have to have high pressure to create the environment where you can create the amount of pressure that the electrons have to prevent them from falling into the proton. It has to be a tremendous amount of pressure between the electrons to prevent them from falling into the proton. Okay. Perform a whatever that is. Stochastikometric analysis. Fuck you till so fucking dead. On any magnet. Fuck you. Show me an experiment, and I'll show you how you've been deluded by a gimmick. Because you're obviously not listening to anything. You're obviously not paying any attention to real physics. Then try to calculate the individual magnetic force on each atom. Why would I waste my time doing any of that crap? And how would you even do that crap? It's such a stupid crap thing. How do you separate individual atoms from each other inside of a material? Oh, that's right, you can't. How could you account for the thermodynamics that happen at different temperatures? The bonds between the atoms changes. The tension between the electrons change. How polarizable they're going to be is changed. I mean, you're just an idiot. Fuck off. Delete it. This is crap. No evidence of anything. Nothing. I wish to argue evidence, not your fucking proclamations. Anyway. This is one of the worst reviews I've seen on YouTube in general. So this is the Wallace Thornhill thing. So you play an asshole's video, right? You play it, and you point out how, well, that sounds like religion. That sounds like Invisible Man nonsense. Where's his evidence for that, right? And that's cheating somehow. That's a bad review. You misparaphrased somebody by actually having them say it in the video. I didn't quote mine. I didn't jump through the video. I didn't cheat the asshole in any way whatsoever. So just a bullshit fucking complaint. Your guy gets to talk, and I get to talk. That's the way it should work, shit for brain. This guy can't listen for longer than a few seconds at a time. Sentences are sentences. Declarations are declarations. You can't figure it out if I say you're an asshole. That really doesn't matter what the context of that sentence is. It's a pretty direct statement. It would be perfectly appropriate to just say, okay, that's a period right there. I can take that as a statement. You just made a declaration. I can respond to that. Right? These people are making declarations. They're making assertions about what reality is. When they make an assertion that I think is totally unfounded or based on no evidence or a preposterous exaggeration, I'm going to say that's what it is, idiot. Alright, I couldn't give this video more resounding thumbs down. Because you're what? Petty and retarded? You're losing an argument and you're just too big a weasel. So why don't you show up and come into this room and defend this stupid fucking electric universe religion? Because that's all it is. It's just science-fucking-tology. Alright, you're a bunch of Dianetics volcano jumpers. It's delusional babble. It has no fucking... You really think the craters on the moon were created by lightning bolts? You really are that fucking stupid? Damn. So, this is it. This is all I get. Yeah. Yeah. It's just pathetic. All this negativity, and they can't articulate it. They can't make an argument. Can't say a fucking thing that makes any goddamn sense in terms of debunking or disputing anything I've said. They can't quote what I say and demonstrate it to be wrong. Ugh, humans are just such disgusting hunks of shit. They're just petty losers. They can't win a fair fight, so they have to cheat with their little thumbs downing and their little fucking bullshit rhetoric. You know, I'll just make totally unfounded declarations that somehow you didn't give my guy a fair chance to make his point when you play his whole fucking video. I don't know if I played the whole video, but I played a big hunk of it. I mean, just such whiny bitches. Dickless cowards. That's all I guess that's it. Alright, so let's see, is there any other so yeah, this is the video on the electron. Very good video. Hour and a half, long video, I know, but right on. I think I will watch this Einstein's quantum riddle. Nova. But it's probably really stupid. So many fake stories, you know. There's so many of them. So anyway, I think that's enough, I guess. It'll have to be enough. Which is disappointing because I actually have to stay up a while tonight because it's really cold out and I have to make sure the pipes don't freeze. So, a little irritating that I don't have something to, something productive to do immediately with this. And, I could use some more comments. Maybe I can find some on Holiday video or something. Oh, that's an idea. Let's go to a Holiday video, Holiday's last video, and see if there's any frickin' comments on it. Little snarkies. See if there's any little snarkies doing little snarky shit. Oh, not too much. You're losing it, buddy. This is a sad state of affairs. Oh, that's a real brilliant comment. Beyond that, based on your appearance and some of your mannerisms, I'm inclined to believe that you are you're on some sort of drug. Well, duh. He's basically suicidal. I mean, yeah, he probably is on something. Oh, amazing. People are just such assholes. Shit. Oh, God. Insufferable. Pigs. Alright. I hate to even go. I mean, I'm not this unsucker guy. I've lost a little bit of patience with him. Let's see if I can find that. Let's go to the last dissident science piece of crap. I think this is it. Let's see if there's any comments on that piece of crap.
Model could be a graph.
Boring. Oh, just yeah. One comment with 14 replies. This ought to be funny. Hi, David. The first part of this video about the mixing of privet and job. I don't know. In science, this is usually not done. You can do it, but then you're doing entertainment. I think that entertainment is a welcome source of inspiration. Except don't do entertainment in science when lots of people are doing that, so it's just stupid. Entertainment, however, is often related to culture, and culture is often related to religion, religion often related to politics. In the newspaper, we get to read about indecent politics and the physics debates. The straw man is used time after time. You're not demonstrating any evidence of whatever this mush theory is, but whatever. When you say that Einstein was wrong, I only hear slander because he did nothing wrong. Well, I mean, his theory makes lots of claims, like photons are twice as affected by gravity, and that photons are bent by gravity. And it also makes a claim that somehow, because of time dilation, somehow objects gain or lose real velocity. And that's why Mercury is fucked up, is because somehow time dilation is doing it, because Mercury is moving faster than the other planets, and somehow, and it's in a heavier gravity, therefore it's moving too much velocity, and therefore it's somehow when of course the real truth is that yes, it is being jiggled in more gravity, and that is likely causing a change in its precession. Where the other planets aren't affected as much because of their distance. So the closer you are to the sun, the more you're going to be affected by the sun's jiggling. The further away you are, the less affected. So that could clearly be just the relationship. All you're really talking about is the precession of the sun's center of mass. That's causing the Mercury to jiggle more, and therefore its orbit to get broken slightly, and very slightly. But yes, I would argue that Einstein was clearly wrong. Bent space is a silly explanation for gravity. It doesn't account for it at all. Einstein was mystified by gravity, and he came up with a mystical explanation for it. It doesn't have any energy in it. Gravity is clearly a form of energy. It's clearly an expression, an energetic expression. You can't account for it with a non-energetic mechanism. And yes, the only way he gets out of that is by the conservational notion that what goes in someday has to go out. And so therefore he can make it nothing, because he can always just say the force that went in will eventually come out, if it was a force. But he doesn't have to make a force. And it's again, what's the logic of saying the thing that makes it happen isn't energy when it has every appearance of being energy. I only hear slander because he did nothing wrong. I think he made some very wrong assumptions, and I think he did engineer a mathematical formula merely to duplicate Mercury's precession, not to predict it. It is okay to say that general relativity is wrong, but then you have to prove that where it is wrong. Well, I think the paradoxes prove that it has flaws, and how can anybody prove it? You're the one with the extraordinary claim. You're saying bent space. You're saying photons, when you move a substance, the photons start changing what angle they leave at. They start going forward into the future for some reason. And that somehow they can travel longer distances in the same amount of time. You know, you're the one making these claims about what photons do. All right, that I don't even think Einstein agrees with. I'm not too sure what Einstein's opinion was of the headlight effect. It's okay to say that general relativity is wrong, but then you have to prove where it's wrong. You are the one with the obligation to prove how it's right. Your evidence affirming it is so weak and vacant. The only evidence that you really have is the indirect evidence of on a different subject. You don't really have any evidence of time dilation caused by gravity. You only have evidence of time dilation caused by velocity. Second, you don't have any evidence of photons really being bent by gravity. The Eddington experiment is garbage, so solar lensing is garbage evidence. And as many scientists have noticed, the mathematics of lensing in the galaxies is completely inconsistent. There's no lensing where it should be. There's a ton of locations where we know there's a ton of gravity and yet no lensing is taking place. How do you explain that? And the same goes for special relativity and bend space. So again, I have to disprove the existence of your God. I don't think that's my obligation. Your obligation, I think, as to have any integrity, is to admit that your evidence is weak. If you had any real integrity, you'd admit the Eddington experiment is garbage. They didn't ever repeat the damn thing. They had the perfect conditions and no competent scientist repeated the experiment, even on the 100th anniversary of the experiment, right? The 99th year anniversary of the experiment, and nobody repeated it. Now that makes sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me. Space-time, for example, rolls out and is intertwined with special relativity, says you, but it's not at all a theory on its own. So again, you're just making claims that somehow you have this big pile of evidence, and no, you don't have any pile at all. You have a pile of bullshit. Engineered little squares of bullshit. Stop saying that Einstein was wrong and stop playing Don Quixote. I don't know what he has to do with it. Stop making a fool of yourself, David. Again, I don't agree with D. Hilster on much, and I certainly don't agree that he has demonstrated Einstein to be wrong, or his tinfoil hatters have done so. But I think the fact that the evidence for his theory remains insanely weak, that he did not in fact deserve the headline in the New York Times, Einstein right, based on the Eddington experiment, because it was a garbage experiment. Do you understand how and why professional scientists don't want to have anything to do with you? So again, you think it's good professionalism to tout experimental evidence that you don't repeat, okay, and that is overtly flawed. You already know it's overtly flawed. The guy who performed the experiment, who had a huge boner for Einstein, admitted in his own journal, I wouldn't stake my life on the results. And yet you think it's pristine, powerful evidence. Go on providing this dissident platform for dissident science like me. Have a good one. I don't even know what that means. He's insulting the guy and then have a good one. And you're a dissident how? What's your wacky theory, Johnny? Let's see what all this mush was. The general theory of relativity is a description method for the process in the universe that provides an image of the energetic actual state of the universe. What just a bunch of nonsense. The two theories just deal with the notion of velocity in one and acceleration as the special case. So the real point is that it's velocity as a whole that determines your time dilation, and that your real velocity is not what might be your apparent velocity. The theory of relativity cannot explain the causes of energy, gravity, and planetary orbits. It's not that it cannot, it's that it doesn't. It doesn't have a rational cause element. It's completely void of a rational causal element. The theory is correct and valid within its domain and definition. It's clearly not valid. It's making claims about reality, that photons are moved by gravity by twice the rate of any other object in the universe. That's a claim it's making, and that claim isn't demonstrated by evidence, but it's just an interpretation of physics that nature works for. It's just stupid. It obviously, in my opinion, clearly is a false, wrong explanation. Just as people think magnetic field lines are moving around a magnet, that there's some kind of force moving in circles around the magnet, coming out one end and going around and coming back in the other end. None of that is happening. It's radiating force just like a light bulb. And there's a red light bulb in one end and there's a blue light bulb on the other end, and that's all it is. There's straight line force radiating from the magnet. There's nothing swirling around anything. That's a fact, okay? If I'm right, they're wrong. And clearly Einstein's wrong, in my opinion, in his vacant description of basically just describing the inverse square law, which frankly doesn't need description. Theory is useful for physical calculations and predictions. So again, what predictions? The whole point is Einstein's predictions that photons start moving forward when you give something velocity. Somehow you can't throw a baseball straight anymore. Every single baseball flies the same direction you're going, as if the photon can have two momentums. That's a stupid prediction, in my opinion. But nature works according to other laws, other than say anything. Beauty of simplicity in the blueprint of the universe. Oh, I'm sure this is absolute horseshit. A little photo. Let's go to the silly little photos. Oh yeah, that's so simple. Theory of everything. Von Allen. I don't know who this is. Endless loop. Nature equals universe. Well, that's really a very intellectual concept. Physical basic force electromagnetic interaction. That says absolutely nothing. Lorentz force. This says nothing. Cause, effect, entropy. This is all useless jargon. So he says this is a simple blueprint. Afraid not. Stupid do. John Jack, whatever this is, in January 2019, we have no grand unified theory, let alone a theory of everything. So nobody claims to know how the laws of nature work. Well, of course, lots of people do. So again, that's just silly. It's just that no one's been able to gain any traction in terms of being able to support that theory in the way necessary for some sort of popular acceptance. I think clearly if I was given the opportunity to interrogate the deGrasse Tysons of the world, I could fairly quickly humiliate them. But anyway, what we have so far is what we have so far. So again, it's you're not even accounting for the fact that what we have are lots of people making claims, and you can have to judge those individual claims. Who's exaggerating and who's not? Who has a theory where they point to the evidence, the experiments, and who has theories where they avoid pointing at the experiments, like a Ken Wheeler. Some of the laws we have in physics are retrieved from nature. So yes, F equals ma is, I mean, whatever, a law of nature. You know, I'm just saying, well, it's kind of yes, it's a very simple notion that momentum is a thing, and it has to do with how fast you're going and how much you weigh. That's how much force you've collected. When the laws of general relativity work for calculating the value of gravity, well, they really don't. You don't need them at all. The inverse square law is the foundation of gravitational law. Then it doesn't mean that space-time is bending just because someone calls it that way. Well, again, it doesn't mean there's any such thing as a time dimension. Gut is not possible. I don't know what that means. Gödel has proved it mathematically, and because of logic, different theories with different definitions lead to different results. Nobody's mathematically proved anything. That's just horseshit. Even the empirical method does not allow for a definitive truth. Yeah, we do know. We have definitive truths. Evolution's a fact. Way past the burden of proof. But nature works consistently and without contradiction. More just meaningless rubbish words. Obviously it's a machine. It's a mechanism. And it's a mechanism I claim doesn't have any magic in it. You know, that is why Gödel's incompleteness law is not applicable to the processes of the universe. Well, whatever. So I don't know why they want to talk about Gödel. That's right, of course, but without a constant order of physical forces, a common field theory is not possible. So, I mean, this is just so, you know, the forces just aren't that complicated. They all have something in common. The speed of light. They all have something in common. They affect electrons. They all have something, you know, you can just go through the list of the commonness of these forces. Field theory is so old, who cares of field theory these days? I don't know why somebody would even say that, because obviously people are trying to make all kinds of crap out of fields. What do you think about my graphic that I linked to? Yeah, I think it's a piece of shit. That's what I think of it. John Walker, science progresses and inspiration and direction are often intertwined. Well, that's just mush. With human emotion and stubbornness. I have seen too many times great minds step in front of their own progress because of human emotion and wrong assumptions they make about others. And same to you, buddy. I, more than anyone, wish it were not true. But I have seen it with the best, as if you are a judge of the best. Pretension all over this. As for relativity, it is no more. Again, like you have satisfactorily buried it with your claims, not your evidence. Physical models of the universe are supplanting SR and GR. So he's just claiming that also, because he thinks he has supplanted something with his infinite, you know, Horton here's a Hooby theory. And no matter the protest, we go forward with real progress, even though Einstein's relativity is no more. So again, making statements as if it somehow has died a proper death, when clearly it has not. The main idea is that you publish your unification of electromagnetic force and gravity in a review magazine. It certainly would bring you the Nobel. Good luck. So again, this idea that somehow the hacks who are going to be in editorial control over conventional physics' magazines are somehow fair cops. It's just an idiotic notion. D. Hilster, we have always can see a better theory or a better model, but saying that the math in SR is too difficult, it is not the same as having a new theory. I don't know what that means. Please show me your solutions to the problem I mentioned before. You mentioned a problem? Walter Lewin's bi-weekly problems. I don't know what he's talking about. Walter Lewin is obviously capable of making mistakes, so I would be very proud of you when you would get the Nobel Prize, David. It is very funny that you mention emotion and stubbornness, David. Those things are the reason that we always say, do peer review, do peer review. So again, I don't. So he thinks the peer reviewers don't have biases. Amazing. Tell the people in your group that it's called peer review. So again, the peers are will obligate you to say light's a wave. They're not gonna pay any attention as soon as you say no. You've got it all wrong. You've made 1,000 wrong assumptions. The universe runs on push, not pull. The universe is made out of real forces, not fake bent geometry and virtual shit. And yes, clearly you can't borrow the energy from a vacuum and then pay it back to a vacuum. That's just nonsense. That's frickin' baby talk. I borrowed a cup of water from the desert and I gave it back to the desert. Sure you did. Alright, so at least I consumed a little more of your and my time. Hopefully in a constructive manner. Making salient, perfectly brilliant points. So unfortunately his audience is full of nutters. They're all these electric universe and silly, whatever. Silly force believers. Some wooers, little unicorn lovers. So anyway. So, till the next time, I guess. I think it's enough now. I'm satisfied, I think. So, see if I get some kind of rational response from somebody. See.